Hello, everyone. I'm glad you could join me. I'm Steve, and this is Mrs. Steve. We got a show tonight. We're going to be talking about Kiely Rodni, and as the investigation transitions from this initial chaos of the searches and everything that's going on out there, going into what the latest briefings by law enforcement has said that they're going to be moving into the task force investigative stages and still maintain some searches. But we'll be talking about those transitions and what this means in the upcoming days in the searches for Kylie. All right, so go ahead and pull it up. But as always, introduce myself. I'm a retired law enforcement, 20 years of service, worked everything from the jail, road, investigations. I had a lot of training in different disciplines. Also was a entry team leader for SWAT and counter sniper. Some of the training I had in my career, I became a state certified crime scene tech, which greatly assisted me in my investigative career. And I worked all types of cases from just thefts, burglaries, all the way up to homicides. But I'm retired now and decided to step into the web sleuth world and tried to be an ambassador between law enforcement and all of the people out there that's looking into true crime and see if we can work together and have a better understanding and have the impact on some of these cases. But tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about Kylie here. Here's a good picture of her. She's a beautiful young girl, extremely intelligent, 16 years old, already going into college, and had and hopefully still has a lifetime of things ahead of her. But as we progress, and we're here at day 11 with no news, sightings, or anything. So as the time passes, we most certainly, the concern of possibilities is greatly, diminished for a happy ending. But we have some pictures of her here. We got a description of her and her car. Most certainly on the vehicle that has been described as being a 2013 silver Honda with that very distinctive tag of 8YUR 127. And so if you see it, and they're also mentioning a lot of the news briefings about the Ram decal that's on the back of the vehicle that's under the windshield wiper, which is, it's easy to change license plates. It's not so easy to start removing decals and things. So if you see either the tag on that vehicle or a vehicle of that type, most certainly call 911, report it, or your local law enforcement, and see if we can't find this young lady. But during the news briefings over the last 11 days, they've had many of them. They had little statements that have been released, and some of them are quite indicative of how the investigation is moving and what will be occurring from this point on. There was a lot of, people asking about where are the videos and all the other information. Law enforcement, of course, have been asking from all the party goers that they needed those videos and stuff. But even during that process, and when the FBI and all these other agencies are there, there's standard operating procedures of how law enforcement will look at this missing person, and as they've qualified and label it as a abduction, which opens up a lot of doors to a lot of extra avenues of being able to get certain types of court orders and paperwork, so they can expand and go into areas that normally probably wouldn't be able to be entered into without that abduction scenario being included in the investigation. So it's a vital bit of information that they've included in there as a possible abduction, because like I said, that's going to open a lot of doors and allow a lot of different resources to be brought in and be used, and certain subpoenas issued and search warrants issued, because like I said, once you get into that criminal element of an abduction or possibility, that increases the powers of the court which increases the power of the officers and their abilities to move forward. But as Lieutenant Barnhart says here, they've collected a ton of information and videos from everything from gas stations, private businesses, and residences. So there's a lot of videos out there, and I believe there's been some video that we'll be talking about in a few slides here about whether or not Kylie was actually at the party, which has now been established that they have video. But also 2 or 3 news conferences ago, they were discussing and they were talking about the number of people that they were putting out there to search and, bring in as many resources as they could in a certain area, which was there at Prosser Reservoir. And they were dispatching them out there, and they were looking for a lot of different things. Oh, thank you, Journey, and sleuthing for answers. That's right. And I appreciate your support. It means a lot to us, and most certainly thank you for everything you've done for us and all your support. But bringing in that many people and being organized, like he says, that's a big feat on its own. They have to plan, they have to prep, and it's not an easy task to make sure everybody has assignments, and what assignments are they going to have and have to work in orderly fashion. And we have to say a lot for this law enforcement collaboration that's happened out in California, because they've been very open and how they're addressing this issue. They've had plenty of news conferences. The only shortcomings that they really have is that, but they've explained how come the Amber Alert was an issue. They have, just like everyone else, they have certain criteria that has to be met. But as the California Highway Patrol representative said, that the social media has filled that void. And that may be the answer of how we do this from now on. Back when Amber Alert started going out originally, we didn't have the social media presence that we have now. But these law enforcement agencies are beginning to understand the power of you and us out here as YouTubers, social media. And it is tremendous because you can send a message anywhere instantly across thousands and thousands of and get that message about anything you want.
Teresa, my suspect is Amy.
Okay. Now, as we start this, we on our housekeeping part of this, you may have certain people of interest. You may think certain people are suspicious. That's fine, but let's not start identifying people as being perpetrators or people that have committed certain crimes. You may say I have a suspect, but let's not name people. Let's not use initials. Let's not use names. And our mods, if our mods say anything to you, or tell you to do something, do what they ask. You can block them, do whatever you want with them, but when you block our mods, or if you are rude to our mods, there's other channels for you. Just don't, because our mods are going to be a whole lot nicer. They're there. One reason our mods are there is trying to protect my and Mrs. Steve's interests. And that's a hard job to do because they have to guess at what we want from our viewers out there. And we just want respect towards each and everybody, because just these comments and putting it out there and beginning rumors about someone that may or may not be involved in the case can have life-changing effects. And we don't want to have that against someone that might be innocent just on somebody's speculation. But be as respectful of the mods as you can. If you don't agree with them, contact me. If I don't agree with you, then of course
Mrs. Steve will handle.
Yeah, Mrs. Steve will take care of you. But anyway, as we move on through here, they mentioned they're starting to tighten down on the searches and some of the processes of this investigation, and said that we're starting to look for small and anything type of evidence, and as opposed to cars, people, things of that nature. We're trying to make it even tighter. And during that conference, they were talking mainly about that phone, and that the last ping of it at 12:33 or within that area, it was not, it was just as near to land as it was to water, which means that the location where they had it was out there near water's edge. And and they most certainly have been doing some in-depth water searches, which we'll be looking at in a few minutes and discussing them. But it's extremely critical that now that they've started looking for small things, and that can be anything from jewelry to clothes, shoes, the cell phone, and still include looking for vehicles and persons within water and within wooded areas. And they'll be using a lot of different things from, they have the aircraft, they have four-wheelers, they have foot searches. And then when they go in the water, they'll have the sonar, and they can even use canines on the water also and do visual searches in the water, just like they can on land. It depends on the clarity of the water. Some lakes are gin clear, some lakes are stained, but there's enough sonar stuff and technologies out there. And we have some specialized groups going out there that have a history of finding and locating cold cases. There's a lot of independent groups out there that are heading that way. Adventures with a Purpose, Chaos Divers. There's so many experts in this field out there that's in the private world that can help and bring certain technologies and their skill sets to it, and we have to admire them. But even, in the waters and things, as they do these searches, there's certain processes that they'll use. They'll bring them in a structured way of that when you're going into some of these water environments, that if you're looking for small items, you can't disrupt the bottom, silt layer of the lake bottoms or waterways, because they'll cloud up and may cover something with just a thin layer of silt that you won't ever see it again, that you'll lose it if it's a ring or if it's a necklace or if it's a cell phone. And so there are certain processes and procedures that they'll use. From the swimmers to the divers and to the drones. And so they'll be doing a lot of different processes here. But here's a picture of the lake. Over here on the left-hand side, I got marked where the party area, the general area where people were partying, lights throughout the night. And there was a couple of pictures that have been released that's out there. One of them was done by that worked for one of the newspaper. I can't read what it is, but he did a great article on it. And you can see where the police boat is setting on the bank and they're pulling a drone. Couldn't tell if the people in the canoe were part of that, but it would, rescue operations can be a lot of different types of vehicles that are very non-disruptive to the water bottoms surfaces. You can't have like big motors running in shallow areas. Now this lake map shows the drawdown of the lake. This isn't the current water level that you see in this map. I just used it because it was handy and you could see the contour of the lake. The actual water pool for this time of year is higher than what this picture represents, but you can see where the arrows point to the shorelines, and then in what angle they're looking in this bay. So they're concentrating a lot to the southeast of where the party was on that shoreline and in that bay, and they're focusing in that one bay area. And that would be, from what I would gather, as this is the last common area or known area that phone pinged in. And so this is the closest location to those pings. And so that's why they're concentrating this part of the search in that area. But as they move on and they'll come in here and like I said, they introduce those surface divers or swimmers that just stay on the surface, or if they use these non-intrusive low type of vehicle, or not vehicles, but boats that won't disrupt the silt layer, that they'll be able to go and just scan And then, of course, later on, they can move in with drones and some of the bottom searches. Back in the old days, before we had all the technologies now, we had sonar and stuff, but none of the capabilities like they have now. And we would have to, whatever we searched for, it was very intrusive and disruptive to the bottom lake layer because they were just drag bars with big hooks on them. And of course, when you're doing that and you're making recoveries or you're trying to find certain items or things that you'll hook into them and find things. And most certainly, I pulled up my share of items and people, sadly. But also, during one of the conferences, this lady who's one of the information officers, they said that they had received video evidence of Kylie at the party wearing the white sweatshirt. And we're going to talk about the white sweatshirt for the fact that originally they said that the sweatshirt she had was a black sweatshirt. Well, that has changed a little bit, that she had a second sweatshirt also, and that at the party she was wearing this white one. So now we have additional articles of clothing to look for that she's in possession of more than one sweatshirt. And it's either going to be in the vehicle or somewheres. And whoever owns these, of course, law enforcement probably knows. And because I watched an interview with the mother, whereas she explains that she's seen Kylie wear both of these and was familiar with where Kylie got them from and things like that. So this is stuff that is known to the family. But now that we get into that, they're going to be doing, as this investigator, I think his name is Barnhart, is talking, that he mentions that they have 50 plus detectives. They're working with the FBI. They're modifying to a task force style, which is scary words for the family and stuff, but they're all searches and missing persons and homicides and abductions. They go through a certain process. When you first get there and you're just trying to get all the information you can, there's a chaotic period. And then you start sorting out all the information. Your first immediate emergency searches and of collection of data and organizations, that as we get all these agencies working together, that it becomes well organized, and they start identifying lead investigators from each agencies. They'll form this task force. While it may be a pullback, especially after 11 days, they've done all the air searches, land searches that is absolutely probably imaginable, and they're still saying that even on the maps and areas that's been searched land-wise for a lot of people, water-wise or otherwise, that they still want the public to go out there and double check, triple check, for the fact that just because one person looks at say that on a roadway where they maybe have identified an area that has a high wreck percentage, and they'll check those areas. They'll go into the records and they'll say, okay, on this road here, people traveling in this direction, there is a high risk of wrecks, and it'll be a concentrated area. And most certainly they'll check those areas extensively. But they'll also let other people, and they're asking that most certainly check these areas, because what one person sees, another person may overlook, or someone may find something that someone else overlooked. And if they find something suspicious, they'll call it in, and they'll bring in the resources, either air, K9, or some type of foot or a four-wheeler, and go in there and check some of these hard to look at areas. Because when a vehicle wrecks in certain terrain, they just don't drive off the embankment. Some of these vehicles can go airborne, and you won't see a track for the first 10 or 15 feet on the embankment. And you won't see anything until they hit a tree, break off a tree limb. And as they go down the embankment, they may not, it just depends on how steep an embankment it is and what trees or underbrush is in the area, of how much damage could be done. And so more eyes on a location, the better it is for the investigation. But they will also be doing a lot of things as far as when I believe this is a captain with the department there that says that during his interview and during his news briefing, he says they're still looking for all the clues, tips, videos, any information, and that they are moving into a more limited but continued search and rescue effort. And they have dedicated 9,000 hours. And so, like I said, they're very open about where they're at in this investigation. And now they're going into the investigative model. And we'll discuss a lot about the investigative model here in a minute. But he says, we don't have a clue or direction of where to go. A lot of people may make a lot to do with that statement. Don't be worried about that statement. You know, when you have professional investigators sitting at a table, somebody may not have a clue of where to go, but there's a lot of guys out there that most certainly know where to go and how to do it. And when you see them, you know, sitting around and creating these think tanks, there's avenues out there. He may not at that point of time when he was making this statement in the context he was making it, that they don't have a clue or direction to go. They do. So we have to be, you know, that we don't make too much of what sometimes law enforcement may say on the spur of a moment. Because, like I said, you may have one that may be confused, but when you have a think tank and you have some of these officers with specialized training, people know what to do and they know how to go out there and get data and how to analyze data. Because they'll go in there just on the cell phone data, because there's been a lot of speculation, especially today, about that a large group of people came into the party at 9:30 on the night on the 5th, and then a large group left at 12:30. And so law enforcement, and with the FBI and all the resources and being able to go in there and look at that cell phone data, they're going to be analyzing every avenue that you can imagine. They're going to look at what phones showed up at certain times in that area, started pinging at 9:30. And they're going to look at what phones, because that's basically a approximate time that Kylie showed up. And then by coincidence, but she may have showed up, I think, around 10 also. Later, there's a little bit of speculation about, but law enforcement knows. They'll ping her phone and they'll know. And then at 12:30, 12:33, when her phone went dead, especially that FBI is there and they're still looking at it as a possible abduction, all the vehicles that left at 12:30 are now open to be investigated for possible abductions and stuff. So that opens up a lot of court orders and a lot of subpoenas and a lot of data information, data mining they'll be able to do from those cell towers. Because we have an abduction, same time her phone went dead, a large group of people were listening or leaving. And so they'll look at that mass exodus and they'll be looking in, you know, that her phone went dead. What other phones went dead at that same time? Or what other phones went dead that showed up at 9:30 and came on and went off, came on and went off at any time during that period. And so that they'll, you know, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to analyze data. And anything that we can think of as individuals, the law enforcement, the FBI, the behavioral science units, everyone that's analyzing this case will be able to do it. And they've thought those same processes. And they've been doing it and they're professionals. And I have utmost confidence that they know what they're doing and they'll be able to track this down. Now, they may not relay the information to us at the rate that we want it, but so far they've been very clear and on and up forward with their information releasing to the public and wanting public's help. But they'll be checking every type of abduction that they or cell phone data due to that abduction avenue that they opened up when they said that this was something. And they'll be looking at what was Kylie's habits. If Kylie was one that always kept her phone on, and even when she was driving, because there's certain rules and certain suggestions that parents tell their child: don't text while you drive, don't answer the phone while you drive, or turn off your phone. If that's not her normal habit, and that may be one of the indicators that led to it was abduction, is that this was something that Kylie would never do, that she would not turn off that phone. And so that may be one of the reasons that they're looking at this. That this is something that had never occurred in her, the study of her victimology, of what her habits were driving and otherwise. We won't know that until law enforcement chooses, or the family chooses to announce that, if that's the case or not, whichever way it is. But they're going to be looking at every avenue from, that it's a missing person. Is she in the water? Is it a possible wreck? And they'll look at, from the worst case scenario, there's all of these cases are tragedies and a lot, but there's a worst case scenario of that. There's a predator out there that has struck and targeted Kylie. And so with that threat being the highest, they most certainly will keep open that avenue of abduction, because if we have a predator, true predator out there, that they will try to identify him and get him and earn proper control. And in the coming days, we're probably going to see that there's going to be a lot of these adults, because there's, the more information that comes out and you listen to some of the broadcast out there, some of the creators, as they interview some of these individuals that are older, and they talk about older people being at the party, that some of these people are going to start invoking the Miranda. They're going to stop talking, because if they had anything to do with either drugs, alcohol, or otherwise, they're going to at some point face some serious questions and have to answer some serious accusations and possible involvement in certain things about, destroying people's lives and otherwise, or being drug dealers and everything. So we're probably going to see in the next coming weeks or so, during this investigative process, as they become more aggressive and towards these adults that were there, and they're going to identify and try to bring that to a close as best they can. And I think they said that they had one individual that was an adult a couple of days ago, that they were able to bypass that little obstacle he throwed up about so it wasn't that it was a mass grouping of adults trying to inhibit anyone talking. From what I gathered from one of the speakers, was it was just a individual or two, but they were able to get past that blockade. And so most certainly he'll have to answer for that at some point, or her. I don't know if there was adult women there, or aged adults on women and men. But anyway, we got anything?
We do. All right, now y'all bear with me here on this here Google machine. So far, it's been pretty good, but that don't mean a thing. All right, let's see here. Thank you to the mods. Y'all were perfect.
Thank you, guys. And our volunteers that's helping with the Cyclops also.
Yep, you need to give an update.
Oh, yeah. And she got another state in. Which state was that in? And we got another one we're trying to get in tomorrow.
Who did I do?
I don't know.
We
update so many different parts of Cyclops, and we get more information in every day.
Yeah,
thank everybody.
One's coming up tomorrow. West Virginia will be up tomorrow.
But we appreciate everybody that's helping us and on our and supporting us in so many ways. It means a lot to us, and most certainly, hopefully, at some point, it will have great impacts on a lot of different people, and that's what we're here for.
All right, new subscriber. Thank you. Hi.
I remember you from last night, James.
I'm changing your slides for you.
Uh-oh.
See, that's the Google machine, right? Okay, there we go. So he saw you on the mob crew. All right, let's see here. True crime with Shannon. We're fortunate to have you, Steve.
Well, and
I am too.
And I appreciate everything that True Crime Shannon does, because she has a great channel and she goes out there and spreads a lot of great information. And as long as we work together for a common cause, and we can have an impact such as bringing as much focus on cases such as this, cold cases are important. All cases are important because we have victims and families. But this one right here is active, and the families right now are absolutely beside themselves, and rightly so. And anything we can do to help bring a close to it, we need to do as much as possible.
All right, and James is with us. This case is so frustrating with the people at the party would start talking besides Sammy. Give Ellie the one tip they need.
And they will. I'm sure that they have far more than what they're letting us know. And if they don't, like I said, when they start bringing out and they looking at all the data that's on those cell towers and on those vehicles and tracking devices and iPads, everything that can be tracked will be tracked, and they'll be seeing what's pinging out there. And most certainly there's a lot of information there.
And Lady Truth, Ryan Upchurch offered his Hellcat car up.
I saw that today. That was creative, and he said he'd even drive it there to them if they had the information that brought this to a close. And you have to absolutely admire the creativity of that, and you have to appreciate that.
Yeah, no kidding. And Steffa, I'm so happy. I think that's supposed to be Adventures with a Purpose is joining in the search Friday.
It is.
Me too. Steffa, you and I are on it today.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Olivia too. This disappearance is such a mystery.
And there's so many, just in the same night, there was another couple that went missing within just an hour or two of this. It's 30 miles away. And Adventures with a Purpose, they mentioned that in their that they were going there. Oh, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, and appreciate your support. And that's what we're trying to do with this channel, is trying to educate everybody in the ways that law enforcement and give a clearer understanding. And also, oh goodness, thank you, Concrete J. Thank you. Means a lot. That as we work together, and if we can get more people in the web sleuth community thinking about cases and focusing on certain areas, creating think tanks, creating groups, social groups, or whatever. Like I said, law enforcement, they're no brighter or smarter than, we're just part of the population, and we have certain training that organizes us, but we can most certainly share the same knowledge with the people out there in social media. And as a group, we can do the exact same thing as far as being think tanks and trying to look at this and get the message out.
And Molly, I can see teens being very scared to contact Ellie about photos, videos, get in trouble with parents. Glad Ellie has said they aren't interested in getting them in trouble. Hopefully that helps.
And that was something that me and Chris was speaking about last night on the mob squad or mob crew, that I didn't understand, because they were, when Meg was being interviewed, she mentioned that when she got there, that there were some very aggressive older individuals wanting them to do bong rips, and for introducing them to that drugs and different types of on the bong rips and everything, and it made her feel uncomfortable. And at first we didn't understand, but when she mentioned it and she described what was happening, that these older, bigger, stronger, aggressive males was coming up to these young women and almost intimidating them, that most certainly law enforcement is going to pay special attention and identify those individuals as they need to, because, whatever predators there are out there that may have caused harm, not only to Kylie, but to anyone else, they have to answer for that. And, why in the world would you go out there but I've seen it my whole life where you have these predators, super predators that just think they're above everything and go out there and try to prey upon the weak or the unprotected. And most certainly we need to change that.
And Lady Truth, I can't get the campers that were nearby words out of my head.
Yeah, now and also even the campers, they'll be looking at them also, because some of the campers may have come to the party. So I know that's not what your true meaning, or it may have been. I don't know which camper and which set of words that you were talking about, but whatever campers were there, just in case we do have a predator, because we have state parks in the county here where I worked, and we had primitive camping. We had to campsites that had water and power, but that there was a certain group, and it's still extremely dangerous throughout the country, that certain individuals, they reside in these campgrounds all around the country, and some of them are predators. And most certainly law enforcement would be looking at all those records and be tracking those individuals down also.
And Steffa, I want to know the truth. If Ellie was called to the party to break up the party, if so, I will use Broadcastify to find the call.
I haven't heard that yet, and I don't know what the normal schedule of what time the campground started closing down. Don't know if it was gated or if it had a manned check-in gate. I hadn't seen that yet. I hadn't seen clarification on it, or if they was just, I don't know what type of rangers were in the area, or if even rangers were present. Don't know if it was a county maintained and supervised area.
All right. And Barb, can they get Facebook to turn over everyone's accounts and get phone records?
It's whatever the courts order. It's whatever they have. Most certainly, if the courts decide, that something has to be done, used to be quite easy years ago when the web was first coming up and all the cell phones and all that we simply had, you called back before they had 911. You call operator and wanted something, they start a trace or a track on anybody, or they'd put a trap on a line that just a suggestion. That's changed over the years. Now it's more court ordered now than back in the golden days.
All right, and from Journey, IMO, the quickest solution is to arrange another party setting and use an undercover, youthful, attractive female for the lure.
And if they decide that most certainly that this is a predator type of thing, and it's reoccurring, that would be something. But hopefully, this isn't of that true nature, because that's a worst case scenario. But most certainly they'll look at that avenue if that is the case, that they'll start if there's other parties going on. And I understand that this time of year there is a lot of parties out there with a lot of young attendees that's around some of these older individuals, which of course some of them are predators.
All right, and True Crime with Shannon, thoughts on the friends in the spotlight, Steve, from an investigator point of view?
And they'll look at that, as far as people that introduce themselves into investigations. And there's a lot of different reasons people do that. But most certainly I wouldn't ever stop anyone from trying to speak and say things. And if they dig their own grave, so much the better.
Well, okay. Journey, I would hire the most experienced private detective to investigate everything and analyze the information.
And hopefully it doesn't ever get to the point that it becomes a cold case or anything along those lines, whereas they have to go that route. But there's been cases solved by private investigators, because in certain aspects of investigation, law enforcement hands are tied. Private investigators, not so much. That they can do certain things that law enforcement can't do, but they can't do it at the request of law enforcement because they can't become an agent of law enforcement.
And Molly? Yes, Steve, I hadn't heard about, quote, swimmers to search. I knew about problems with silt, etc. Didn't think about swimmers. May have visual tech that helps them see.
Of course, I mean, like I said, it depends on the clarity of the water. And, as they do minimum disruption of the water currents and things as they float along, that is the less or least intrusive way of looking prior to going down in there and getting to the point where as you are disrupting those silt later.
And James, it's just really odd people coming 100 miles away to party with teenagers going off to college. Unless they knew them, yes, maybe. But was they there to really party, the travelers and older?
The people that are identified, they're going to have to explain, if they were part of the party and they've got pictures of them, their phone data, and they stayed there and certain things occurred. A lot of people, like I said, are probably in the coming days as law enforcement goes into this investigative stage and starts doing these interviews, that we most certainly will probably see that law enforcement will have quite a few of them that will shut down and then invoke their right to remain silent. And of course, law enforcement, doesn't matter what they do, they'll still do that investigation, backgrounds, and understand what potential does that individual have to be involved in this case.
All right. And Molly, there's so much shoreline because of the drought. If the car went off the road, it seems more likely to have landed on the ground.
Yes, and these vehicles, setting upright for one thing, but when a vehicle is turned over and it breaks up the outline that the human eye normally sees, it's so easy for the human eye to miss something that, you're looking for a car. And most people, when they see a car, they see a car upright. But when it's overturned, even in water, a lot of times it doesn't look like a car. And in brush or something, because they have dark under the skins and the protective paints and stuff usually are dark nature, grays, and which blends in really well with the underbrush. And so, and the shadows and stuff. So sometimes overturned vehicles are extremely hard to identify.
All right. And Teresa, Steve, can FBI get into the phones without warrants?
They can. There's currently in the court systems, there's still issues about some of the privacy stuff that they can, and they're arguing now how much data can they get and what processes are needed. I don't know where California stands now on that, but they would take it to court and have whatever hearings, and each case probably would be a standalone case of why do you need this information. But such as in another case that we looked at, Delphi, it was just subpoenas, which that was 5 years ago. That's all you needed. It may still, I don't know what California law is, but we will most certainly will be seeing as law enforcement releases and we have a better understanding, do they actually have to go and get a warrant just for the data from the carriers, or will a subpoena do? And it just depends on whatever the case law is set out there in California.
All right. And Savannah, you'd be surprised how far a man would drive for easy prey.
Yeah, predators are predators. You've got serial offenders that travel the country, from one side of the country, from the East Coast to West Coast to northern and southern borders. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
And Tracy, disappointed the press releases have slowed down. That kept a lot of speculation down. And
as every day grows, we're going to have more and more of that. And but just use your common sense and be careful about spreading any type of rumors. Try to keep it as, reason based upon reason and logic and evidence as you can.
True Crime with Shannon. I'm impressed with how they are handling this investigation with the public and those of us following as web sleuths.
Yes, and even asking in the, I think it was interview yesterday where they said, don't stop looking, check the, they have Molly Cal Topo, I think is the name of the program, of whereas you can go online and check and see where searches have and what legs of searches have been done in certain areas, and go in and put your own track of where you searched, which is great. And they even encourage them to go back other individuals and go on them same tracks. Excellent working relationship between law enforcement and the public.
All right. And Molly, interested in what they are meaning about, quote, investigative model and, quote, task force. We have a multi-county, state border, major crime squad where I am that coordinates resources. Is this similar?
It would be, but they'd be specific to whatever type of crime. Is it drugs? Is it human trafficking? And there's so many different task forces out there. You have DEA that has task force. You have everything from people that traffic in human or human trafficking. You have thefts, cartels. It's just absolutely amazing how many different avenues and criminals out there that run these enterprises, and there's task force addressing all of them.
All right. And Tracy, if YouTube and other social media platforms are used in a positive manner, we can very much help in these cases.
And we are on the brink, and we're on the forefront of what the future holds. And as law enforcement, and as we become more responsible sleuthers and use the information that law enforcement gives us in responsible ways, they'll use us more and more.
All right. And Molly, what type of phone did Kylie have? I think it was an iPhone 13, wasn't it?
It's something like that.
I read it somewhere.
And Chris mentioned it last night, or what it was also, and I can't remember.
Interesting that it, quote, went dead. I thought even if it was turned off, it would still ping unless it's destroyed.
I don't know all the capabilities of what some of these new phones can and can't do, and what people can do.
And Steph answered, it is an iPhone 13. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Lady Truth, I'm thinking airport long-term parking.
And they would check those areas most certainly, and both foot and by vehicle. And like I said, law enforcement has scanners and things that if this car was mobile for any length of time, that still had that same tag on it, that most certainly it would have went through one of the license identification or tag identification systems that would have alerted law enforcement. And law enforcement, this vehicle is such a high-profile vehicle right now that I'd hate to know I was in a multi-state area driving a silver Honda CRV, because you're probably going to get stopped quite a bit.
Teresa at Steve, one of her so-called friends has some bruises on her. Wouldn't LE take her in for questioning and get pictures of the bruises?
I had heard of that also, and most certainly in any type of investigations, whereas possible assaults or abductions occurred, law enforcement looks for certain types of injuries, and anything from broken fingernails to bruises to scratches, and they generally address those issues. I don't know if they have with these individuals or not. Hopefully they have.
All right. And Savannah, majority of peeps would have been under influence. I doubt they would risk driving very far, especially with Kylie in the car.
And if
that makes sense.
Yeah, if you got to the party, you had to come with someone. And if you left the party, you had to get not only your car, but her car away from there, unless it's in that Prosser Lake in a certain section they hadn't found, or the technologies hasn't found yet. That lake's only, although 787 acres is is most certainly a large area, but it's not for 11 days of searching. That they most certainly could grid and use a lot of different types of sonar equipment to search even the deepest. I think the lake is only 50 or something feet deep.
And I'm showing this because I love that name, pepperoni.
All right.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, that's on every pizza.
That is on every pizza. And this is from Savannah. Majority of peeps would have been under. I already read that one.
Yep.
I just couldn't get over pepperoni. Okay, hold on. Let's see here.
Pizza.
Pepperoni. What do we do if we have tips regarding Kylie? You
All right.
flip it over for me. Where's your?
It's down here. I'm gonna get it to you right here.
There you go.
Anyone with information, call the Placer County Sheriff's Office. Tip line at 530-581-6320. And I believe the reward is up to $75,000 now. It may even be higher, but that's what it was at one point today. And I hadn't checked it prior to coming on air, so it may even be higher now. But this is one number that you can call. If you're unable to call them, call any law enforcement agency, call 911, or you can call the FBI. This is the Sacramento office that asked to be notified if you had information, and it's 916-481-9110. But any of these numbers or even 911 will get you the right on the right track to report any tips or information you have.
And thank you, Savannah, for your kindness. That is so sweet. She loves your channel.
Thank you, Savannah. I appreciate your support.
All right, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like pepperoni is going to get the boot.
What happened to pepperoni?
They're not taking 100,000, not a penny less for turning in the. Apparently, pepperoni is not. So you're not interested in helping find a missing 16-year-old. So pepperoni's not calling in their tip until that reaches 100,000.
Well, that's sad for you, pepperoni. But bye-bye.
See you. I just got to.
This is an auction.
Just got to go back and find old pepperoni. See you. Wouldn't want to be you though.
And of course, there's certain
that is awful
types of personalities out there, and I know even in law enforcement we have dark humor and stuff, but there's no need to come on to and make light of a situation of a child, and I don't have to put up with it. Won't put up with it.
Nope. Pepperoni.
They can go out and create their own channel and make it as abusive as they want to. Good luck to you.
All right, let's see here. You're right, True Crime with Shannon. There's a door. Please use it, Pepper. Okay, let's see here. Molly at Steve, can something like MJ be laced with propanol or similar kinds of things? Definitely in drinks would make her very compliant, if not asleep. Oh
yeah, there's so many drugs out there and designer drugs from like Molly and other stuff that you have to be so careful with. And most certainly, I think they just arrested a guy in this same area last week that had spiked a young lady's drink in some way got her under the influence, and I think she died this summer. And they just arrested her, or arrested him in the last week or so. So yeah, there's all different types of drugs out there that these predators will use.
Thanks, Stefan. It looks like you took care of the pepper dude, so appreciate it. Or girl, whatever.
Yeah, whatever they are.
Yeah, who knows? All right. And how could a campsite have 300 people partying after dark and no park patrol? Oh,
That'll be answered. But that is a good question. But now, I don't know what the registration process was. Don't know if it was reserved. I mean, there's, parks have certain rules and certain entry, and was it just general open until say midnight? Don't know. And was there a second party somewhere else? Don't know. But law enforcement, like I say, they'll check all that data and be able to use it. But I don't know what the park rules. I hadn't looked up that park and see what their access rules were.
so that's your homework.
That's my homework.
He's got homework. Melissa, what did the camper say? I didn't hear anything about that. Is there a video?
I know that one of the campers said that at 9:30 they saw a large group come in, and at 12:30 they saw a large group leave. But that's the only statements I heard. But most concerning, the 12:30 leaving is at the same time that her phone went dead, and so most certainly they're going to be looking at why is that? Is that just a coincidence, or what? And so that is going to be an avenue that law enforcement is going to look into extensively.
All right. And Olivia, was it private land?
I don't know if it's state or county parkland, and on Prosser Lake Reservoir. We have core property here. We have state property, and then of course you have private properties. And so I don't know in California exactly what camp this was. Was it county or state or?
All right. And Dog Defender, what, if anything, does anyone know about this quote fight club?
My understanding is I don't know if it was one of those just party fight things that was going on or what of oversized gloves but I had heard speculation about that, and I have no idea if that's even a thing that went on or there or what type. Was it just a party gag? Don't know.
All right. And Stefan, do you know if Ellie went to the party to break up a fight?
No, I haven't heard that. And I'm sure that the media or someone will be doing open records requests for all calls for that time period that night to see what type of calls were going on in that area.
All right. And Corgi Mama, do you think the phone was tossed or the car is in the water?
If it's in Prosser Lake, most certainly you would think they would have found it now, because as they said yesterday in one of the conferences or the day before, that was ground zero of where all the, they had the dive teams, and we have pictures of sonar. We have pictures of dive teams there and whatever. And I saw some other high-end electronics being operated by look like some type of government officials. So exactly what all they've used there, I have no idea. But some of the just from the bass fishermen and other areas, other equipment out there, it's extremely. And you can go out there and look on YouTube and see what some of these sonars that's just on a fishing boat can do now. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Dog Defender, I hope they have access to a teen computer whiz. They need to get those Snapchats.
That's true. Some of these kids they're so far ahead. It's absolutely amazing.
That's funny.
I can't figure out how my grandson breaks into my cell phone. He's not even 4, and he break in, don't even use the code, don't understand it.
All right, let's see here. Molly at Steve, are there trafficking type people that are just being actively watched in general, not just for Kylie, but her as well?
Oh, yeah. So they're always, there's certain parts of the government looks at that of human trafficking, and you have that in almost all major cities. Reno, most certainly, there's a large contingency of human trafficking, being that close to Reno and Las Vegas and certain parts of California. And whatever task force they have there is handling that. Thank you, Dragon Man. Hey, appreciate that. Thank you for your support. It means a lot. And And like I said, we just have a great community out there, and we're trying to do some great things, and y'all are absolutely helping us do that. Thank you. But the task forces that are addressing the human trafficking issues and other um, whatever the FBI and other agencies, whichever one's set of investigators or lead investigators will be contacting that, and they'll be running parallel investigations towards different possibilities. You'll have the human trafficking investigations. They'll maintain the water searches. That'll be an avenue. They'll maintain the ground searches. They'll maintain avenues as far as aircraft searches. They'll look at the abduction for multiple different types of predators. So there's going to be a lot of different avenues that this task force is going to look at, and they'll start narrowing it down. And as they filter through all this data, because I think right now they've only had 1,200 to just 1,000 or two tips, which isn't a lot. I mean, that's very few considering how big a party this was, but they still have an immense amount of data to filter through. And those tips and that witnesses' accounts as they do the interviews, a lot of that's going to be coming to light and or will be addressed in the coming days due to a lot of interviews going on by these lead investigators.
And Tracy, I wonder if a predator didn't see Kylie at the lodge, started stalking her social media, and knew she would be at that party.
Absolutely possible, and that's one scary. Of the dangers of social media now, and the catfishing and everything that goes on. But they will check and see if what type of messaging texts are going on, and they'll look at other crimes in the area also, and and they'll identify all the sexual or registered sex offenders in the area. There's so much protocols that's almost automatic that law enforcement will go and do immediately, and then during that very chaotic startup, and then they get everything organized, and they'll readdress a lot of those issues and make sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's were crossed.
So this is interesting. Dog Defender, getting a search warrant for a phone in California is a bit tricky, but my husband gets them often. Yes, through carriers.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know what all the laws out there now, and it's constant battle with the courts as privacy issues come up.
All right. Steve, it feels like LE have their hands tied. In Texas, I expect a cop would have come to the campsite and cuffed a bunch of kids. Your thoughts?
Been there. And, campgrounds are, like I said, I've seen some absolutely unreal parties at some of the campgrounds. But luckily for us, most of ours were the adults that were, causing the issues. And it's far easier to deal with an adult that's causing a problem at a campground. You cuff them, stuff them, and book them, and it's you're done for the night. With the kids and stuff, it's more of a soft-handed approach, because you most certainly don't want to destroy a child's life for certain problems, and sometimes it does that you just can't correct a child, but sometimes you try to do the best you can as a law enforcement officer.
All right, and Molly is giving you the name of that website.
Yeah. I know I probably butchered it when I said it.
All right, let's see here. Jim. Steve, is there a reason LE didn't patrol this area while the party was going on? Seems like a lot of people going unnoticed.
And I don't know, like I said, if there weren't any issues there, and it was, that as far as law enforcement being advised of it, if none of the girls felt threatened or had called in that they were being abused or stalked or being harmed, and none of the campers called it in, I mean, there's different levels of partying, and I just don't know what the call volume, on a Friday night, call volume can be pretty extensive in certain parts of the country. I know for us, Friday and Saturday night, it was wall to wall, constant, going from one domestic to the next. or one fight to the next. And so I don't know how backed up their call volume is, although we'll probably be seeing that. As I said, some of the media will be going in there and doing open records and trying to see exactly what was going on that night and what type of calls they were answering.
All right. I think we've already talked about this. What is your understanding about the Fight Club? As a detective, does this make you go,
Like I said, there's different levels of fight clubs and things. I mean, if you're talking about high school students, and I've seen them put on these big blow up fake fist and go out there and have different types of encounters and things. It's more just, kid stuff. But as far as the professional fight clubs and stuff, I don't know, and I don't know what context that was meant in, as far as what the party goers reported. But most certainly they'll come to light.
all right, let's see here. Black Rose. Andy, question, does she have a dad or stepdad?
I think a fellow wearing a cowboy hat that said he was the father, and I think they're divorced. I believe separated or something, but I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. But my best understanding was that.
All right, and let's see here. Whoa, Google machine just did its thing.
I have to send you back to Google School.
I know it. I'm having. Okay, here we go. Lady Truth. I feel bad for her mom. Oh my God, that is an understatement.
Absolutely. And you can see it.
Understatement.
When you watch her on the during the interviews, you can see it. She's absolutely beside herself.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's see here. Nellie Peewee, what if there is someone who is afraid to report what they know because they're afraid of getting in trouble for using narcotics?
And you can see that in the press releases by the public information officers as they address that issue. And you see them saying that you're not in trouble. Just give us the information. You're not in trouble. And they keep repeating that message. And so they're trying to address that issues. And most certainly they'll talk to behavioral sciences and, people that's in the certain types of fields to understand how is the best way to communicate with some of these younger children that have those fears, and what is the message to get out to make them come forward. And they'll address that as best they can.
All right. And Double Rainbows question, are there 2 people missing, or is that speculation rumor?
I know there's at least 2, and maybe a third one also. When I was watching Adventure with a Purpose, when they were making the address that they were going out there, that they were talking about that not only was Kylie a part of it, but as they do these searches, and once you get these professional private divers in these fields, they may, and I will not be surprised one bit that they will find somebody or some vehicle, maybe a cold case, but they're going to find some vehicles. I have no doubt that when they get out there and they start putting their expertise in action, they're going to find vehicles. They're going to find a lot of different things there. And it may or may not be Kylie, but they will make recoveries of some sort. It may just be vehicles, but they're going to make recoveries.
This from Steffa. Does anyone know if the VIN is on the missing person poster? I want to see if that Honda model had Honda's version of OnStar. Have to have the VIN number to check.
And I don't know if law enforcement's released that yet or not. And they most certainly have that, because I don't think she owned the vehicle that long. they'll have that information from the tag and VIN, and they will have checked and known that. And if it was able to be activated, they would have activated it.
Let's see here.
But like I said, they're going to be doing so many different types of things for this investigation. And I know that, like I said earlier, that there was a lot of speculation that was there a second party, and at the 12:30 were they going in there. But like I said, law enforcement would identify that during these mass movements of cars coming in or coming out from the pings, and like I said, they'll run every avenue, and they'll track down exactly if there was a second party and what vehicles went where. And because like I said, once they identify a certain device, they'll follow it, especially with that avenue of abduction being opened and being maintained and the FBI being there, that every vehicle that left, especially within that specific time frame of around 12:30 when that phone shut off, they'll go to all means necessary to identify and track every device they can that specifically is linked to that area at that time.
What is up with these crazy people?
Well,
does somebody knock out Leonardo da Vinci for me? I hope you did.
Yeah. As we grow and we and have a larger audience, we most certainly are going to be drawing some nutcases out. And but we'll take care of them. Bear with us as we throw them out of here. And we're just not going to put up with any type of idiots. They can go somewhere else.
All right. And Jim, Steve, how often does reward money work? Seems like not often.
And, I couldn't give you the specifics as far as it is, but sometimes it's divided up among multiple people. And but there's far more reward money out there than is ever claimed. And, am I really into the reward money? Good people do what's right because it's the right thing to do. And but also they should be rewarded if they give good information and it does bring closure to the case. They most certainly should get it. And hopefully in this case somebody does it for the right reason and comes up with that information and solves it, and they also are rewarded for it because it's a good it's a great advertisement for everyone, and what that person does with that reward money. You often see that some of them may give it back to the families, or they give it to some other needy charity. And so there's a lot of things to be used out there, and but it's good advertisement. And if it is the one thing that does solve the case, it's worth every dime.
All right. And whoa, see? All right. I'm not going to butcher that name up. AWP say it's notoriously difficult to find newly sunk vehicles. They haven't had a chance to collect silt, and they appear as flashy on sonar. And
you're doing a fantastic job there, Molly.
You are, Molly. She saved me tonight a couple of times, her and Stefan.
But they'll find it. And like I said, even, like I said, some of this stuff, and there's so many different types of sonars out there that hopefully they'll be able to bring some closure to it.
Yep. All right. And that looks like we're done. I cannot say thank you enough to my mods tonight. What a nightmare with these troll people things.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
And like I said, we want to thank all other volunteers. We want to thank everybody out there that gave us and support us with your money contributions, and also the ones that have gone to the website and did the PayPal. It means a lot to us as we order our equipment, and I think there'll probably be, I don't know, in the coming weeks, whenever I start my new series of videos showing how some of the equipment's used and stuff, and as I contact some of the family members that I've got to go and work. I think my first trips going out of state, I think I'm going to try to do it in February is my first out of state trips.
If it's not snowing.
If it's not snowing, because one or two of them's up north, and got to go there. And but most certainly, want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Most certainly, give us share, thumbs up, and subscribe. And we
Thank you to your new subscribers you got tonight.
Oh,
too.
yes. Thank you. It means a lot. And as we grow and have a greater footprint, we're going to have a greater impact. And that's what we want to do. We just want to do something good for some of these families and get the messages out there, serve them best we can.
Wait a minute. Where was it? Dog Defender wants to know who is on Mrs. Steve's shoulder.
Oh, that's
Oh, this guy right here.
Yeah, that's just one of my targets, one of my training targets, and my old vest I used.
We got all kinds of stuff back here.
That vest there is probably 20 years old back in the day, and that's my old shotgun I used on patrol. And
You got to show your picture.
oh, and I was a sniper. There's
Proof.
Yeah, but that was just one of our training pictures. Me and my spotter shooting. But anyway, we want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and see y'all soon. Saturday night we should be back on air, and thank y'all, and see you soon. Be safe out there.
Thanks.